Almost every time acts of terrorist violence have occurred in Northern Ireland, and regardless of whether it was the IRA or the Protestant paramilitaries who were responsible, the victims have habitually accepted the official reports of what happened. In the case of the Omagh bombing, which occurred on August 15, 1998, when families did not blithely or blindly accept the made-for-TV spin and did conduct a private investigation into the reasons for the atrocity, we find the whole propaganda machinery being tossed out the window in no time at all. I recommend the movie Omagh to those who are interested in studying the occult history of Ireland. It will serve as a good primer on the subject. While watching this movie, remember that the protagonists were Protestant men and women who believed their elected government officials would never lie to them, and that the police were their best friends. By the end of their traumatic investigations, however, they were able to discern their actual enemy. Shockingly, it was not, as everyone erroneously believed, the IRA. Indeed, studying the history of the IRA, or Irish Republican Army, is both interesting and revealing. It is a study that has, in the end, less to do with politics and more to do with secret orders and hidden agendas. The persistent student eventually becomes aware that from the earliest times, some of the most notorious and conspicuous founders and leaders of the major Irish rebel bodies were in fact counter-revolutionaries. They were agents of the British establishment. There is evidence to show that this was almost certainly the case with the infamous James Stephens of the IRB, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, John O'Mahony of the Fenian Brotherhood, and P.J. Tynan of the Invincibles. In our opinion, nothing has changed. We believe that the insidious ploy is still in effect today. Men of this sort, positioned as they were in senior positions of Irish rebel organizations, were not interested in freeing the Irish people. They worked for the contrary purpose, and were, we believe, instructed to make sure that authentic revolutionary movements did not arise to successfully threaten the British establishment or imperial status quo. In our opinion, they were supremely successful. It is our contention that many leaders of revolutionary or terrorist cells throughout the world, be they of the political left or right, are in fact expert fifth columnists, funded and instructed by agents of British intelligence. Some recent examples are F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela of South Africa, Boris Yeltsin of Russia, Lech Walesa of Poland, and Robert Mugabe of Rhodesia. This fact remains largely unknown to the masses. It remains unknown to the duped members of the world's many secret societies and terrorist movements. On the early years of the IRA, my good colleague Jim Cairns wrote the following revealing words.
At the start of the Irish Troubles in 1968-69, there was only one group called the IRA in Ireland. However, a split developed and a separate group of IRA activists was formed, calling itself the Provisional IRA. There is a cloud of uncertainty surrounding the formation of the Provisional IRA in 1969, and there seems to be a deliberate attempt to conceal certain facts. Pro-IRA writers give scanty explanations for the foundation of the Provos, but if one looks hard enough, one discovers some interesting truths. In 1968-69, the IRA, as it was called then, had a very socialist outlook. Its left-wing members saw the Protestant Unionists in Northern Ireland as the enemy, but they were also very resentful towards the large estate owners in the Irish Republic. In 1969, the IRA in the Republic of Ireland, the 26 southern counties, made a number of attacks on the properties of large estates in the west coast of Ireland. These attacks on private property in Éire were greatly resented and were seen as a direct threat to the status quo. A group of wealthy and powerful businessmen and property owners saw the need to control and oppose the activities of this left-wing faction within the IRA, and they concluded that the best way to do this was to promote and support a new IRA faction, which would be effectively under their wing. Thus, the Provisional IRA was formed in 1969 under the leadership of David O'Connell and an Englishman called John Stevenson, alias Sean McStearfan. With the backing support from these hidden establishment figures, the Provisional IRA would soon become the dominant IRA grouping, and the official IRA, the original IRA with left-wing supporters, soon became eclipsed and declared a ceasefire in 1972.
Thomas Clark Luby, the co-founder of Irish Republican Brotherhood, James Stephens, the main founder and leader of the IRB, and John O'Mahony, leader of the Fenian Brotherhood and IRB. Were these men true revolutionaries, interested in the freedom of Ireland, or were they part of an intricate plot devised by British intelligence?
One of the first books to deal with the origins and machinations of Ireland's early secret societies was written by Captain H.B.C. Pollard. In his book, the author details the origins of the Protestant Orange Order and the many Republican orders.
In 1857, a messenger was sent from New York to James Stephens, then in Dublin, asking him to get up an organisation in Ireland on resources provided from the States. And it is clear that Stephens had already cut and dried plans in his mind as to how this was to be done. He stated his terms, which were agreed to, and on St. Patrick's Day, 1858, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, or IRB, was initiated by Stephens and Luby in Dublin. The model secret society from which the founder drew his ideas and plan of organisation was undoubtedly the Carbonari. This society was the lineal descendant of the Illuminati of Weishaupt, which had such a profound influence on the French Revolution. In point of historical antiquity, the Carbonari Society long antedated that of the Illuminati, but it was captured by the latter between 1770 and 1790.
On the connections between the United Irishmen and the Illuminati, Pollard referred to the researches of R.C. Clifford, the author of The Application of Barruel's Memoirs of Jacobinism to the Secret Societies of Ireland and Great Britain, a book published in 1798. Pollard wrote,
"The influence of Illuminism was noted by the Honourable R.C. Clifford. The United Irishmen, organised in 1791, was, states Clifford, based on Illuminism. The proposals for it are couched in the style and exact terms of the Hierophants of Illuminism."
From the researches of men such as Baron Avro Manhattan, we know about the extensive power of the Jesuit order and Opus Dei. We know these cabals serve the interest of the Atenist elites ensconced in London and Vatican City. We know from the findings of experts and whistleblowers how much control the Jesuits, the Teutonic Knights, and the Knights of Columbus have over certain ostensibly Catholic terrorist groups, including the IRA. Officially, the Catholic Church frowns upon secret societies. However, in practice, it is quite a different story. Moreover, not only have Catholic priests regularly absolved IRA murderers of their heinous crimes, but many priests have served as commanders of IRA divisions. Most, if not all, of the convicted IRA inmates received regular visits from senior Catholic clergymen who've taken their causes and even bestowed blessings upon their heads. The young patriotic men who felt compelled to join the IRA knew little about their true enemy, or that their organization is connected to many international criminal syndicates, some of them quite ancient. No, the average IRA member had his attention and ardor artfully channeled elsewhere. So it was through the generations, and so it has remained.
This Irish Catholic organization, the Defenders, similar to that of the Spanish Guardia, was founded in 1562 by Roger Moore, behind whom were French and Spanish Jesuits. According to Captain Pollard, author of The Secret Societies of Ireland, the nominal function of the Defenders was the protection of the fugitive priests during the period of proscription. The Defenders soon became a criminal association of lawbreakers and banditti. The Sinn Féin movement made sudden great headway in the ranks of the younger priesthood, and it was current gossip at the time that some sections of the church held participation in the rebellion to have been sinful, whereas another section, notably backed by Irish members of the Society of Jesus, contested that the ideal which animated the revolutionaries gave moral sanction to their actions.
In regards to the so-called opposition, the Protestant societies, one of the most important for readers to be aware of is the elusive quorum known as the Black Preceptory, that hides itself behind the infamous Orange Order, itself a tentacle of even more elusive British and European orders, such as the Illuminati. This is because the so-called Illuminati were not, and are not, anti-royalist as the propaganda insinuates. They were funded by royalty from day one, and we've presented the facts on this in our DVD entitled The Irish Origins of Civilization. Adam Weishaupt, the official founder of the Order of the Illuminati, spent the last 40 years of his life residing in the courts of European royals such as the King of Austria, Charles de Lorraine, the Grand Master of the Teutonic Order, and other members of the Habsburg dynasty. His order was backed by royal princes and dukes, and the same thing goes for the Orange Order, the very word orange being a reference to the royal house of Hanover. The Black Preceptory is also known as the Royal Black Institution, a name that sounds worrisome enough. This quorum includes judges, police executives, clergymen, senior intellectuals and academics, and men who run major corporations in Ireland and elsewhere. The Preceptory's senior members have the power to change government policy on a local and even national level. They reward selected lieutenants in the public limelight for furthering their agendas and see to it that other men who do not fall into lockstep are removed from professional positions. The Preceptory has the power to cover up heinous politically motivated crimes, to sequester evidence so that complicit brothers remain unprosecuted, and prevent official investigations into the criminal activities of their members. Additionally, members of the Preceptory and Orange Order, including journalists, reporters, and editors, and so on, can bias reportage in any manner desired. Alarmingly, the senior privileged members of these elusive fraternities have the power to arrange assassinations and acts of terrorism. For centuries, the Orange Order's elite members have furthered their own agendas by fomenting conflict and expertly pitting one ruthless sectarian faction against the other. This is an old story when it comes to the provinces of Northern Ireland. We're all privy to the effects of sectarian hatred and bloody violence, but not so privy to the causes.
The Orange Order is avowedly Christian, unlike Freemasonry, but it shares the Croft secret society structure. Its rituals, passwords, grips and signs are based on Freemasonry. Its initiation ceremony apes the first-degree Croft ritual with the rolled-up trouser legs, the hoodwink, and the poniard to the naked left breast. Two allied Protestant orders, the Purple and the Black, are also based on Freemasonry. The Masonic Brotherhood is a substantial behind-the-scenes force in Orange and Unionist politics. In Northern Ireland's 1920 constitution, Freemasonry was awarded special status, as if in recognition of some concealed role in the province's triumphant struggle to stay in the United Kingdom and out of the Irish Free State.
In the Republic of Ireland, the wealthy and powerful Masonic elites concealed themselves behind societies known to Irish historians as Clan na Gael, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, and the Ribbon Order. Bearing this in mind, when we see Gerry Adams or other Sinn Féin leaders wearing the little green ribbon that looks like an AIDS ribbon, we'll remember what is being told to us on a subtextual level. Do your homework and you'll find out that this green ribbon stands for the Ribbon Society, which was a division of the ancient order of Hibernians that can itself be traced to the same powerful Masonic cabals that operated throughout the world and conspired to bring about the French Revolution.
In the same 1939, much of Ireland lay in terror before the Irish Sons of Freedom and Sons of the Shamrock or Ribbon Society. The Ribbon Society did not attempt a political coup. It was succeeded in the 1840s by Young Ireland, which was directly linked with Mazzini and that other revolutionary tradition, Romantic nationalism. And then, in the 1850s, by the Irish Republican Brotherhood, also called Fenians after the pre-Christian warriors, largely modelled on the rival Carbonari model of Republican conspiracy.
The investigations of R.C. Clifford detail in his book the application of Jacobinism to the secret societies of Ireland and Great Britain led this author to believe that the United Irishmen and the Illuminati bore one another a close resemblance. The tenets of a true Jacobin of the French Revolution were utterly subversive of all existing institutions and approximated to those scheduled by the revolutionary secret society of the Illuminati.
The very flag of the Irish Republic reveals these secret associations and tells us the story symbolically. Green on the one side, orange on the other, and in the middle, a white band. Do we bother to question who or what the white band represents? Who are the illuminated White Brotherhood positioned between the orange and the green wings? Could they be the Knights Templar, whose history goes back to the Chaldeans, the Cistercians, the Fenians, and the Milesians, or Atenists of ancient Ireland? Could they be the Order of the Illuminati that is not supposed to exist?
In the Secret Societies of Ireland, Captain Pollard writes that, founded in 1641, the notorious modern society known as the Ancient Order of Hibernians is a direct successor of the original Society of Defenders. In common with its ancestor, it attempts to enable the clerics to exercise control in politics. It claims in its own official history, published in 1910, to be the oldest secret society in Ireland. Independent researchers show that the claim is sound and that the present AOH is a descendant of certain criminal organizations of the past. The open admission of this chain of descent by its own historian is important. American sources trace the AOH to 1565, but the date 1641 is more commonly accepted.
In 1869, a new secret Irish-American organization was formed, known as the Clan na Gael. It traces its origins back through a permanent secret society known as the Knights of the Inner Circle, which in turn descended from the Knights of St. Patrick, known as the Ancient Order of Hibernians today. The Ancient Order of Hibernians in America has for many years been under direct control of the Clan na Gael, which also influences the AOH through such American Catholic associations as are not distinctly Irish, such as the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic fraternal society. By a close study of the Ancient Order of Hibernians and the Knights of Columbus, one cannot fail to see the control that Freemasonry exercises over the Irish Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic control of the Ribbon organization has always been denied by those interested in hiding the relations which has always existed and which still exist between Irish secret societies and Irish Roman Catholicism. Behind O'More were French and Spanish Jesuits, and the redoubtable hero was probably only an instrument in their hands, his country only a pawn in the game of world politics.
If you ask people to identify the paramilitary organization that has committed innumerable atrocities in Ireland, they will be bound to mention the Provisional IRA. But ask people to identify the secret societies from which the IRA arose, and you'll be greeted with silence, head-scratching, and puzzled brows. Go to an encyclopedia and look up the entries for both the official and the provisional IRA. In all likelihood, an entry will confirm that the IRA developed out of the so-called Irish Republican Brotherhood. Brotherhood? Yep, that's right. That is the name by which the infamous IRA were known before they began calling themselves an army. The latter term implies a political body. The former, something quite different. It implies a fraternity, a secret fraternity. And that is exactly the point that needs to get across to those men and women who've been victimized by this terrorist organization. The IRA were, in their earliest years, known as the Irish Revolutionary Brotherhood, and also as the Fenian Order. The Sinn Féin emblem is ostensibly a white lark. However, the emblem appears more like a white dove, which is also employed as a symbol by some very powerful secret societies, most notably the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic order related to the Knights Templar and Knights of Malta that has its headquarters in Vatican City. Even more suggestively, the symbol of the dove can be found on the top of the scepters belonging to the royal family of Britain, themselves related to powerful dynasties of Europe such as those which funded the Order of the Illuminati. The dove is found on royal regalia because it is Judaic, or more correctly, Atenist. It is an Atenist emblem. It symbolizes an elite group known in secret society circles as the Davids. The word David derives from the same root as dove and divide, a term which alludes to the compass and rule of Freemasons, the dividers. Now, the commanders of David, the ideological or biological descendants of the ancient Egyptian Atenists, have been in control of the British Isles from approximately 1,000 years BC. The symbolism of the lark-like dove gives us an insight into who truly controls Sinn Féin.
Sinn Féin, an Irish patriotic organisation advocating boycott and passive resistance against England, was founded by Arthur Griffiths in 1905. He was succeeded as president in 1917 by Eamon de Valera. By that time, the society was controlled and subsidized by the Clan na Gael and Germany.
On the Protestant side, we find that the Orange Order is likewise a tentacle of the same lurking Atenist creature. The proof is there for those who have done their homework and for those with pattern recognition skills and symbolic literacy. It's there for those who know how geopolitical games are played. The proof was there for me, when as a child and later as a teenager I watched the orange parades that take place annually during the month of July when the sun is at its highest point in the zodiacal arch. I eventually came to realize that the timing of the orange parades was astrologically synchronized. After all, the color orange represents the sun that has been used as an emblem by practically every Freemasonic and Templar society descended from the powerful solar cults of antiquity. It was about light then, and it's about light today, a certain kind of light. The Atenist doctrine has not changed much over time. Now, I began my researches into the occult history of Ireland back in the late 70s, after a spate of horrific ritualistic murders of young men in Belfast was traced to upper-class homosexual and pedophile officials within the British government. However, at that time, no one I came into contact with could or would tell me the meaning of what I was seeing. Not my school teachers, who were wont to reply, "Well, that's way above my head there, Michael," and not the so many politically active family members I knew. No one took my questions seriously. All I received was insider smiles, cynical rebuffs, threats, and physical abuse. I knew I was on my own. However, I never considered abandoning my idiosyncratic investigations. The blustering of other people has never deterred me from going my own way. On the contrary, it has always reinforced my sense of independence. After 20 or more years of non-stop research into esoteric matters, I began to find out the reasons for all the strange things I observed. Until this day, sad as it is to say, apart from my two Irish colleagues, Andrew Power, the author of Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, and Jim Cairns, author of Disappeared Off the Face of the Earth, I've personally not found anyone else in Ireland who has been overtly or overly concerned with these vital matters. As far as I can tell, there's about 3 men in Ireland with a deep, legitimate and active interest in the occult history of their land, and that includes myself. Perhaps since the 70s, 80s and 90s, and unknown to me, the demographic has changed, and maybe it is slightly higher in the rest of the world. I would hope so. But nevertheless, as lonely as the road was, I knew I must continue uncovering the meaning of the symbols I saw during the Orange Order's parades, and on the murals, state flags, school and college decals, and civic architecture. In time, I realized that the majority of these cheery participants in the 12th of July parades, the members of the Orange Order and their liquored-up sidekicks, were largely ignorant of the deeper meanings of their own symbolism. They were lower-rank lieutenants, and in the need-to-know level of clearance, they were the uncleared. I would eventually discover that the many symbols I noticed and had been interested in, such as the double crosses and skulls and bones and coffins and pentagrams, the dragons, the lions, the ladders, the compasses and rules and so on, were not limited to my insular habitation. They were to be found throughout Europe. They were in England, Canada, Australia, Germany, Russia, America, and many other countries of the world. They were ubiquitous, but ignored by most men and women who've been trained to look without seeing and to accept without question. Another veil of ignorance was removed in 1984, when, after venturing into the field to make detailed studies of the design and precise astronomical and geospheric positioning of Ireland's many great megalithic sites, I came to realize that Britain's modern cities had also been designed to align with the rising and setting of certain planets, stars, and constellations. I subsequently discovered why stars, pentagrams, and red dragons were to be found on the pavements and buildings of Belfast's Fountain Centre, and why the City Hall had been purposely aligned with the ancient site known as Giant's Ring that lies 4 miles outside the town. I saw that there was great purpose in the design and location of Belfast's churches, cathedrals, convents, colleges, and state buildings. My colleagues and I discovered why certain towns and cities of Ireland are laid out as they are. We know that the so-called Battle of the Boyne was not a battle at all, but rather a ceremonial rite performed by royals of high degree, working on an esoteric level and in complete ritual collusion. We have the proof that shows these supposed rivals to be of the same blood, banking with the same international financial concerns. We know that the captivating stories we grew up with, the contrived histories taught to us in school, simply do not fit the facts. Passing through the various cities of Northern Ireland, such as Bangor and Belfast, Newry, Drogheda, and Derry and so on, we see what looks like the flag of Israel flying. We see the Ulster flag and large colourful murals featuring the Star of David. That's a Jewish symbol, right? Well, that's what most people think. That's what most tourists think. And it's what most people who watch television or want to believe when they see footage of Northern Ireland. What they don't know is that the symbol originated with the Irish Druids. It's an ancient astrological symbol and has very little to do with religious Judaism as it has been put before us officially. In an Irish context, it is simply the insignia of the secret societies that have been placed in charge of political, economic, and religious affairs. If the symbol has anything to do with Judaism, it is only because the same secret institutions that I've mentioned also happen to be in control of Israel. They're behind the Israeli versus Palestinian conflict in the same way as they are behind the Protestant versus Catholic conflict. It's just business as usual for these camera-shy demagogues. The Star of David, or more correctly, of the Davids, plural, was once upon a time the star of the Irish Druids. It was a symbol of the Arya, or the Aryans, and it signified bi-unity, the harmony between masculine and feminine and all other polarities. As we've explained in our book and DVD on the Irish origins of civilization, the ancient traditions and symbolic archive of the Arya have been well and truly plagiarized and cannibalized by Templars and Masons. These secret societies have assumed total control of the political institutions of the world. This is why their symbols appear on the heraldic emblems, arms, and flags, as well as on credit cards, corporate logos, and commercial products. Whether it's the 5-pointed pentagram on the flag of Communist Russia, hammer and sickle, red square, or harp on Irish heraldry, the story is the same. The symbols represent the world's original spiritual aristocracy. They are now flaunted by the sorcerers responsible for their demise. Since I began my researches, I never cease being amazed at how many documentaries have been made and how many books have been written on the IRA and Republican movement. To this day, you can go to the bestseller tables of the world and see weighty hardbacks and coffee table tomes on the IRA. Yet by contrast, consider the dearth of information on the Orange Order. It's hard to remember when any in-depth documentary on this society has appeared on mainstream channels. Of course, we might find such works in some dusty library shelf, but they're uncommon when it comes to the bestseller list and the tables of the mainstream bookstores. Yes, it is always the IRA this and the IRA that. There are biographies galore on Gerry Adams and McGuinness and the rest of them. They're the rock stars. But when it comes to the Orange Order, there is, relatively speaking, a wall of silence. What faces do we associate with insiders of the Orange Lodge? We can put faces to Sinn Féin, and we know what Ian Paisley looks like and stands for. We know what the Protestant paramilitaries look like. But do we really know who runs Ireland? More importantly, can we understand that one brotherhood controls both factions? Or will it take another century before the truth is accepted by men and women whose family members have suffered and died because of their participation in a conflict they erroneously believe to be moral and legitimate? My colleague Andrew Power opened the first metaphysical bookshop in Belfast, which is how I ran into him. It was 1983. The first book I bought from him on my dole money was William Sterling's Canon, a book on sacred geometry. Andy was the only Irishman that I'd ever met who did not think I was bonkers. Sadly, his bookshop did not last long. Later, Andy went on to write Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs. He dedicated his book to me and to the researcher Jordan Maxwell. That was a lovely gesture. In the book, Andy deals with the occult symbolism of the famous Battle of the Boyne. And what a strange battle it was. Did you know that apparently no one was killed at this famous Battle of the Boyne? Did you know that not a single bullet, buckle, musket, spear, button, or body was ever found in the area with metal detectors? The entire battle was an elaborately staged Masonic ritual undertaken so that the political and dynastic power could change hands from the elites of the Stuart dynasty to their cousins in the Hanover dynasty, the House of Orange. The site was selected because the River Boyne, named after the goddess Boann, matches the heavenly river, the Milky Way, and because it is a stone's throw from the ancient complex known as Newgrange or Brugg na Boyne. Within the tiny chamber of the great cairn of Newgrange, for the 3 days of the winter solstice, the light from the sun and the moon unite. In front of the cairn is the original Stone of Bethel, upon which Jacob, or the sun, rests his head. The site was extremely sacred to the megalithic Arya, the nobility of the ancient world.
A Masonic banner being carried through the streets by members of an Orange Lodge during a 12th of July parade. The image on the banner is of King William III, known as King Billy, riding into the Boyne River during the famous battle between the houses of Hanover and Stuart in 1690. On that day, however, the king's horse was black and not white. Furthermore, in many murals and depictions at this moment during the battle, the king's sword passes over or between the horse's ears, thus making the horse subliminally appear to be a horned unicorn. As author Andrew Power pointed out, this is appropriate symbolism because astrologically, the white unicorn was the symbol for the northerly sign of Cancer. The red lion symbolized Leo. The King's River crossing was a terrestrial analog to the celestial crossing of the star Sirius over the Milky Way, the heavenly river. The image of this star can be seen on the architecture of most Masonic halls throughout Britain and the world.
My revelations concerning Ireland's true history follow on in the tradition of the researchers Conor McDarry, Commons Beaumont, and Anna Wilkes. These investigators knew that man's history did not just begin 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. My work, like theirs, deals with the Western origins of civilization. It deals with the connections between Ireland and the pre-Diluvian or pre-flood continents of Atlantis and Lemuria. Lemuria appears in Irish mythology under the name Murias. It was one of the 4 great land masses that were destroyed, but which were the original homelands of the Irish, or more correctly the Irish, since the name Ireland is a corruption of Ari or Arya land. The original Aryans were the Druids. Specifically, they were the elders of the Irish race. They were finally annihilated by their Atenist enemies who arrived in Britain approximately 1,000 years BC. In the earliest days, before and after the great cataclysm that destroyed the pre-Diluvian civilizations, the Arya spread from the west into Eastern Europe and Asia. Wherever they ventured, they were regarded as great sages. This much is conceded by the scholars, past and present, who firstly did not realize where the so-called Celts originally came from, and secondly, that the term Celt was both inaccurate and prejudicial. In my book Atlantis, I deal with some of the amazing Tolkien-esque leitmotifs from Ireland's ancient legends. One such intriguing anecdote speaks of the Fomorian King Mork and his great tower made of glass. From his tall tower on Tory Island, this evil king and his brother Conan kept watch over the land of Ireland. This they did by way of a magic lens or seeing stone, some great crystal. In another legend we read of the Sun King Lu, a young king who did battle with a great Fomorian giant by the name of Baelor of the Evil Eye. In the story, dated to over 5,000 years ago, and thousands of years before the so-called Israelites appeared in history, Lu rode out towards his rival, carrying with him his only weapon, a sling. That's right, Lu struck out Baelor's eye with his shot, or tathlum, thereby slaying his giant nemesis, the scourge of his people. Now where have we heard that tale before? Yes, whether we're talking about lost civilizations, the giants of antiquity, tarot cards, astrology, the minstrel tradition, Arthurian legends, biblical scripture, or modern-day political machinations, Ireland's importance can no longer be downplayed or ignored, as has been the case in generations past. In days gone by, men were told they'd fall off the edge of the world if they traveled too far west. They were told this preposterous lie because the masters of the great geopolitical game feared the ruination of their own vile empires should Ireland's true reputation become known. Better it was for the tyrants of the world that Ireland's significance be forgotten, and better it would still be for them today. The time has come, however, for the Emerald Isle's true history to be revealed.